And Chris, you're watching the SEC on ESPN. A great day to be a college football fan. And it all starts here. Showdown Saturday kicks off from Athens, where the BCS championship door is open for number 3 Georgia. 2 wins away from a shot at the title. The night ends in Southern Cal with Notre Dame number 1 in the BCS standings, taking on USC. Last Saturday was earth-shaking with respect to the BCS. What will the next 12 hours have in store for us?
Set to kick off for Georgia Tech. Number 44, David Scully. Deep for the Bulldogs, number 26, Malcolm Mitchell.
Georgia Tech has won the toss and deferred, so Georgia will get the ball first. The Bulldogs 10-1. Their only loss at South Carolina. They've won 5 in a row since. Both these teams will play in their respective conference championship games. First time that's happened in this rivalry. On the short kickoff, a big return across the 35. Mitchell in the Tech territory and pushed out of bounds at the 44-yard line. A great start for Georgia. Will operate from the Yellow Jacket 45-yard line.
That ball came down really short around the 10-yard line, which doesn't give Georgia Tech the opportunity to get their defense set up, and Mitchell breaks the seam.
Now Georgia Tech has had trouble on defense this year. They fired their coordinator early October. Al Groh, former Virginia head coach. This doesn't help when you give the offense the short field, plus Georgia, very good offense, 21st in the nation in scoring. Aaron Murray, the quarterback, will throw on first down. And out of the backfield is true freshman Todd Gurley, who other than Johnny Manziel has been the best freshman in the SEC this year. And with that pass attempt, Murray comes just a couple of yards shy of 3,000 yards for the season. He will be the first in the history of this great conference with 3 straight 3,000 yards passing seasons. They'll run Gurley here on first down. Big hole. And another Georgia first down. Gurley, the first true freshman since Herschel Walker to rush for 1,000 yards. He's close to 1,100 now in the season.
And you mentioned it, giving a short field to this explosive Georgia offense, not the way that Georgia Tech wanted to start this football game. For them to compete with the Georgia team on the road, they had to win in special teams. They'd already given up a big play.
Murray facing pressure, dumps it off to the tight end Lynch, and he is inside the 10 and all the way to the 3. So first and goal, Georgia operating very smoothly after playing an FCS school last week in Georgia Southern, and they're going with a hurry up here.
And it looks like Georgia Tech was not ready for this up-tempo style of offense. That time the tight end wide open in the flat.
It's Gurley into the end zone. Easy touchdown for Georgia. Number 13 on the ground for Gurley this year. Well, there are people wondering whether Georgia would look past this game to next week's SEC title game, where they'll likely play Alabama. Early return would say no. They're not looking past it. And the extra point is good for Morgan.
So important in these rivalry games that you come with your best at the beginning of the game. Couldn't have been any better for Georgia on offense.
Well, Georgia on top early, 1:03 in, after a 4-play scoring drive following a good kickoff return. Gurley with the touchdown run. And Georgia Tech's defense has had issues all season long. They have a chance today. They're going to have to get some stops. But meanwhile, their offense is potent. And that'll put some pressure on a Georgia defense that has a ton of talent. A handful of future first-round NFL draft picks. They gave up 35 points to South Carolina. Had some other games they didn't play well. We'll see what happens here with Georgia Tech getting the ball for the first time. Here's Tony Zenon, and he will not even reach the 20-yard line. Knocked down at the 16. Dave Pasch alongside Brian Griese. Jen Brown down on the field. Brian, you were a player. You remember what November was like leading up to when you won the national title. What is going through these players' minds the next couple of games?
There's a lot of pressure. There's no question when you have a national championship on the line. But you got to take care of business first, and especially in a rivalry game like this. Very impressed with the way Georgia came out, took care of business on that first drive, specifically Aaron Murray. And now the question is, defensively, can they stop this potent Georgia Tech offense?
And on first down, they get a big play as B.J. Bostic, starting for the injured Orwin Smith, gets 11. Smith out with an ankle injury, so Bostic just his 23rd attempt on the season. Gives Tech a first down. Tevin Washington, a senior, will start. He'll go 2 series. Then redshirt freshman Vad Lee will come in at quarterback and play 2 series. And then the head coach Paul Johnson will determine from there whoever's playing better will keep playing.
And that's the way he's been doing it the past 2 weeks. They were very, very good against North Carolina.
First man through is David Sims, known as the B-back, which is technically the fullback in this offense. He gets 3. Christian Robinson on the stop. Here's our impact players for Georgia Tech.
And Washington a week ago didn't do it as much on the ground against Duke as he did through the air. 3 touchdowns. We mentioned Orwin Smith out. Robert Godhigh is a guy to keep an eye on in his replacement. And then Italcho is dealing with the flu and didn't practice all week. Didn't know if he was going to go in this game, and he played that first series.
Impact players brought to you by Jared, the Galleria of Jewelry. 2nd and 7 at the Georgia Tech 30-yard line. And the pitch to Godhigh. And Godhigh is out near the 40-yard line. So a gain of 11 and another Georgia Tech first down. Defensive tackle Kwame Geathers downfield making the hit.
And the sweet play on the pitch is a change-up for Paul Johnson in this offense. We're going to see the triple option a majority of the time from this offense, but sometimes they will use counter, they will use sweep and pitch to get the ball on the outside as a change-up.
And last week against Duke, they threw for 3 touchdown passes. Washington had only 6 completions, with 3 were for scores. Sims up the middle, stuffed by 370-pound defensive tackle John Jenkins, one of those Georgia defenders that has an NFL future, probably a first-round pick. They are loaded on defense. We'll talk about Jarvis Jones as well, maybe the #1 pick overall in the draft.
Well, it looks like Georgia is deciding early in this game against the option to play both of their big men, John Jenkins and Kwame Geathers, in the game at the same time. Geathers at the nose position and Jenkins playing the defensive tackle. Very difficult to block those 2 behemoths inside.
I mean, you got Jenkins going up against offensive linemen that are 270 pounds. And a big hole for Sims. Another Georgia Tech first down. Sims fumbled the ball as he was trying to get an extra yard at the 41-yard line. They did not rule that forward progress was stopped. There's a lot of stuff that goes on under the pile. In a rivalry game, it's enhanced. And it looks like Georgia Tech, covered up the loose football at the 40-yard line. Sims got it back.
This was just the dive play. You're going to take a look at the linebackers are going to play over the top, both Jenkins, and then you're going to get the dive right up the middle. This is what keeps defenses honest. Very good read by the quarterback, and you can see Christian Robinson, number 45, goes right by the dive. He has got to take that dive against the Georgia Tech offense.
And it was Bakari Rambo, the All-American, that forced the fumble. Zach Lasky straight ahead, and they're getting good yardage on first down. Jenkins and Robinson, I mean, that's got to be, there's some pushing and shoving. That's got to be tough for these athletic and big Georgia defensive linemen with offensive players diving at their feet, diving at their knees, play after play.
Well, this is the 2nd week they've had to face this style of offense. Georgia Southern a week ago, and Coach Rick was telling us yesterday that they've practiced each of the last 2 weeks in full pads to try to get this defense ready for all of the cut blocks that they're going to see in this offensive scheme. And no matter how much you practice it, you're never really ready for the speed of it until you get on game day.
So 2nd and 4 for Georgia Tech, and again it's the B-back Lasky, and he has a first down. Georgia Tech is 3rd in the nation in rushing, 325 yards a game, and that is the most in the Paul Johnson era. He's in his 5th year as the head coach at Tech.
So important for Georgia Tech to answer a quick score by Georgia.
Yes.
You don't want to put your defense, which has been struggling all year, right back on the field. Impressive so far on this drive.
But can they capitalize and finish the drive? Off the right side, Lasky, a 3 or 4. Alec Ogletree on the stop for Georgia. Todd Grantham, the defensive coordinator, really has turned things around with this group the last few years. They had a stretch at Georgia where they were struggling on defense in particular. And last year they go to the SEC title game, lose to LSU. They're going to be in the SEC title game next week. Game day will be there, by the way, when Georgia in Atlanta faces likely Alabama, assuming the Tide take care of Auburn today. Here's a pitch to Godhigh around the end. And Godhigh breaks a tackle at the 25-yard line and close to another Georgia Tech first down. Wrestled to the ground by Christian Robinson.
Watching film all week, the guy that jumped out on the camera to me was Robert Godhigh. He's only 5'7", 180 pounds. Watch him break the tackle with Jarvis Jones right here. He's low to the ground. He's one of the strongest players on this Georgia Tech team. And if Georgia does not wrap up, he will make them pay.
And it is a first down. Impressive opening drive by Georgia Tech. Play 10 coming up. No surprise, 0 passing plays on this drive for the Yellow Jackets. And they reset the play clock there. Georgia Tech's playing well of late. Won 3 straight ACC Coastal Champs. Miami backed out. Self-imposed a bowl ban. North Carolina is ineligible, so it will be Georgia Tech and Florida State in the Dr. Pepper ACC Championship game. Washington, the late pitch, and a big hole for Godhigh. And another first down as Godhigh just shoves Rambo. The ball came out and Georgia's got it. Somehow Rambo took it away. There's a penalty flag down as Rambo is all the way back near midfield. Again, Rambo is second forced fumble on this drive, as the Yellow Jackets were fighting for extra yardage. He wasn't even going for the tackle. He was just trying to get the strip.
They teach defenders, when you have a couple of your defenders there with a guy wrapped up, you just go for the football. Rambo, well coached to go for that football, and looks like he's got a turnover.
It appears it's going to be a penalty on Georgia Tech, which would give Georgia the ball in midfield.
Georgia run, block in the back against the offense. The penalties decline. First down.
And again, it didn't even look like Rambo was trying to make the tackle. He was just going for the strip. His second forced fumble here in the opening quarter.
A lot of room for Godhigh to run, and then you see Gathers gets there, and Rambo says, well, I know Kwame Gathers can tackle this guy. Let me just go for the ball. And that's what good defenses do. Good defenses play well against the run. Great defenses play well against the run and turn the football over. And so far, that's what Bakari Rambo is trying to do.
Now, if you're Godhigh, you've already seen Rambo do that once. Do you there just go to the ground?
No, you can't play like that on offense. You got to fight for every yard you can get. You just got to secure the football, hold on to it.
Instead of first and goal at the 1-yard line for Georgia Tech, they are reviewing this, although it certainly appeared that Godhigh was still up when the strip took place. It'll be first down for Georgia in midfield. It'll be their second possession around midfield. This is where it could get sideways on you quick if you're Georgia Tech. You just march down the field and put yourself in a position to tie the game. Then you have a giveaway, and now Georgia is in position, certainly after their last drive and the way they looked, to maybe get up 14-0 quickly.
Well, and one of the biggest keys coming into this game for Georgia Tech was to bleed the clock. Long drives. Last week they had 3 drives over 70 yards against Duke, had over 38 minutes in the time of possession. That was a big reason why they won that game. They did keep the ball and possess it in that first drive, but you got to finish with touchdowns, and they can't afford plays in the special teams like the first return.
After further review, the ruling on the field is confirmed. First down.
Got an ACC officiating crew. Tom Zamorski, our referee. So Bakari Rambo playing his final home game here in Athens. Had some off-the-field issues with a reported failed drug test that led to a 4-game suspension. An All-American, great player, got a future in the pros. And he makes 2 big plays on this drive. 2 forced fumbles, one that is recovered by himself and then returned all the way to midfield. So first down for the Georgia offense. And Gurley is the tailback. And Gurley doesn't get much. Ijan Cross, who missed last week's game due to the flu, made the tackle. That flu bug going throughout the team. You talked about Atalchu dealing with it. The head coach Paul Johnson dealing with the flu as well.
Down a long nine.
So 2nd down and 10. And Gurley on the cutback, big hole. And a gain of 15 all the way to the 35. Isaiah Johnson brings him down. Todd Gurley, an impressive true freshman back.
Nice cutback from Gurley. You see Izan Cross, number 94, goes for the quarterback, leaves a big hole up the middle. And Todd Gurley, in my opinion, the best back in all the SEC as a true freshman.
From the 35-yard line, play action for Murray. And going into the end zone for King. Incomplete, out of his reach. Rod Sweeting on the coverage.
Well, when you can run the football like Georgia can, play action becomes deadly. And this time, a little play action. Aaron Murray had both guys hoping he could take his pick there and just missed King for an easy touchdown. Aaron Murray is normally very, very accurate. That time, just a little bit off.
He'll throw it out on the flat here. And inside the 30-yard line and down near the 29 is Rhett McGowan. That's his 8th catch of the year. And be short of the 1st down. Big 3rd down for Georgia Tech's defense. So Aaron Murray now is over 3,000 yards. You know, if he were to come back, he'd have a great chance of beating David Green's SEC passing record and Tim Tebow's total offense record. That's if he returns. There's been some talk this week that he might forgo his senior year based on a weak quarterback situation with the NFL draft. Gurley gets the 1st down inside the 20 to the 19. That was no contest on 3rd and 3. They just ripped it for about 9.
Great block by Chris Burnett, the right guard. Came on a power. It's just, it's a luxury in this scenario, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 for Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator, to just be able to call a power running play and know you're going to convert.
And a high pass that's caught by Mitchell. Got blocking out there. And Mitchell runs over 2 defenders, still fighting for yardage and out of bounds inside the 3-yard line. 15 more yards on the play. 1st and goal, Bulldogs.
Been impressed with Malcolm Mitchell, his ability to play defense and switch to offense, back to defense, and just really a playmaker on both sides.
Here's Gurley. And Powell towards the 1-yard line, brought down by Atalchu. You know, it's interesting that in a league like the SEC, on some of these teams, including Georgia and Texas A&M, the best player is a freshman.
They are outstanding players. Just goes to show you how well high school players are being coached now. They come kind of already ready to play in a lot of instances at the collegiate level. Mike Bobo says he's never coached a guy like Todd Gurley. Looks like a man amongst boys.
6'1", 220. 2nd in the SEC and rushing behind Manziel. He gets stuffed here, but great 2nd effort, got him a touchdown. Stretched it out, and it's 13-0 Georgia. Really a 14-point swing as Georgia Tech was going in for a touchdown to the other end before the fumble.
There's no quitting in Todd Gurley. He got stopped at the line of scrimmage. Atalcho got pushed and blew the fullback up, and Todd Gurley ran right at the back of him, but 2nd effort got him in.
And it's 14-0 Georgia midway through the 1st quarter.
6:14 left in the 1st quarter. Georgia 14. Georgia Tech nothing.
Gurley jamming it in there, stretching it out, getting his 2nd touchdown already and 14th rushing score of the season.
Visit WatchESPN.com or download the Watch ESPN app to watch ESPN live anytime, anywhere. Brought to you by Vizio.
Back between the hedges here in Athens, where Georgia leading 14-0. They call the 2 true freshman running backs, Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall. They've got a nickname for him, Gershel. They wear numbers 3 and 4. If you put them together, you get Herschel Walker's jersey number and his rushing numbers as a true freshman. This is how they match up.
Same amount of attempts right there. That was the key, right? I mean, it's comparing apples to apples, and those two guys right there have been as productive as anybody else not named Herschel Walker in Georgia history.
Meanwhile, Georgia looks like a team that knows it has been given an opportunity to play for a national title. Of course, they got a lot of work to do the rest of this game, and then next week in the SEC championship game as Golden takes a knee. But so far, so good if you're a Bulldog fan. They look ready to play. And they're leading Georgia Tech 14-0. The good news for the Yellow Jackets, they moved the ball down the field. But a turnover at the 1-yard line by the Yellow Jackets the last time they had the ball.
ESPN College Football is presented by Cars.com, where confidence comes standard, and in part by Internet Explorer. Welcome to a more beautiful web.
Now, the last time Georgia Tech won here in Athens was 2008, and they trailed by 16 points in the first half. Came back to win. They're down 14 midway through the first quarter. They ran for 83 yards on their opening drive, but turned it over on the goal line. And Washington will keep, and downed after a gain of 1. Let's check in now with a third member of our crew, Jen Brown.
Thanks, Dave. Well, it was certainly a unique week for Georgia. Because of the holiday, classes were not in session, which meant that this team didn't have to adhere to the 20-hour rule of meeting with players. So they got a little extra time. They said it was almost like an NFL week. They could meet at will. They even had a Wednesday practice at noon to simulate today's noon kick. But Coach Rick said the biggest thing was that he got to keep the players in and on the field and keep them away from that hype of talking about next week's SEC championship game.
All right, Jen, here's Lasky out to the 32. Meanwhile, Jarvis Jones there, while Jen was doing her report, went to the sideline. Let's see what happened here to Jones.
Yeah, he chased down the quarterback, Tevin Washington, from the backside, and it looked like a collision at the quarterback. Yeah, friendly fire with Jordan Jenkins, the other outside linebacker. A little shaken up.
Yeah, Jones had that spinal cord injury when he was at USC in 2009. He's battled back from that, among other adversities, to put himself in a position to be a high NFL draft pick. Big third down and 3. Georgia Tech trying to keep the Bulldog offense off the field. Washington keeps and has the first down to the 38.
It's at 7-7 on ABC.
Now you got him smiling, Reese, as Lasky picks up 2 on the dive. Michigan coming off its first win over Ohio State in almost a decade. They're not going to be able to play for a Big Ten championship, but they do have the chance of spoiling not just an undefeated season, but depending on how things play out, it'll be interesting if Ohio State's the only undefeated team left, what the AP voters do in terms of ranking them number 1 or 2. Lasky again, stuffed. And Garrison Smith, who lost his helmet on the play, he's mad about it. He's going to have to go to the sideline for a play, but he made the tackle.
Well, this defensive front for Georgia has been tested this week in practice, as Jen said. They've had a lot of time to meet on this triple option. So important for the defensive lineman to get penetration, to stop that dive, to allow your linebackers from the second level to run to the pitch and run to the quarterback. And so far, John Jenkins, Kwame Gathers, Garrison Smith, all doing a nice job on that dive.
Another big third down, and again an offense where they don't throw the ball, but it looks like they will here. Washington setting up, and he's got a man. And a diving catch made at the 38-yard line by Jeremy Moore. Only his 8th catch of the season. Only the 63rd completion by Washington in 12 games.
Well, he just run a nice route. It's called a flag route. Getting out there, watch the catch on the shoelaces. Great concentration for Moore. I can't tell you how hard it is to go out and block, play after play, and then ask to be able to make that kind of a catch. Well done.
So a gain of 20, and Georgia Tech is in Georgia territory again. Lasky gets to the 34-yard line and then pushed back. Christian Robinson and safety Sean Williams in there. Now Williams, a senior, leads the team in tackles. He was the guy that after the Kentucky game, which was the week following the loss to South Carolina, called some of his teammates out. Mark Richt told us yesterday in our conversation with him that That was a big moment because it questioned the manhood of a lot of players on defense. But obviously Georgia's responded. They had not lost since and playing their best defense of the season. Here's Sims, and again, second effort. Rambo trying to strip the ball once again, but could not. First down at the 26-yard line.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting what Mark Richt said about the comments from Sean Williams. That it takes a lot of leadership and character to come out and say something like that. Mark Richt said it's the first time he's ever had to deal with that kind of a situation where a player publicly calls out his other teammates. Said it could have gone one or two ways, positive or negative. Thankfully for Georgia, it's been a positive.
Washington couldn't get the pitch, and Jarvis Jones knocks him down. A loss of a couple on the play. The pitch was covered. Washington had to eat it.
You talk about the weak side. Jones is going to come from the backside. When you're looking at the option, you cannot cut back because the backside is not blocked. If you're Tevin Washington, you got to pitch that ball or keep it, but you can't cut back because there's Jarvis Jones waiting unblocked.
First negative play for Georgia Tech. Loss at 2. Nearing the final minute of the opening quarter. Georgia Tech with more yards of total offense than Georgia, but down 14-0. Here's Sinjin Days trying to cut it back with Jarvis. Jones stands him up. Got back to the original line of scrimmage, but it will be 3rd down and 10.
That was a great play by Sean Williams as well. He played off the wide receiver's block and then got a leg on the running back. Take a look. Number 36 will come up, take on the block of Godai, and then gets outside leverage. Perfectly played. He knows that his help is coming from the inside.
Well, the long field goal for the Georgia Tech kickers this year is 35. It'd be about a 44-yarder from here. 3rd and 10. And they are going to set up a trick play. Georgia called a timeout. It was going to be a pitch to Sinjin Days, a former quarterback.
Charge timeout, Georgia. That's their first charge timeout and a half.
Days played some quarterback last year, and he was going to throw it downfield. But Georgia called for time. Back in a moment. But still USC with a lot of talent. And it's a big rivalry game for them.
Two games where you have teams in USC and Florida that have not played well as of late. And I think when you come into these kind of games, it's all about confidence. And the confidence of those two teams has got to be a little bit down.
Meanwhile, Georgia Tech with a 3rd down and 10. And Washington, and trick play to the other side. A little throw back to an offensive lineman, the left tackle, Ray Bino. You know, in the NFL, an offensive lineman can't touch it, but in college, you can as long as you are behind the line of scrimmage and it's not a forward pass. That's a legal play, and Bino does not get the first down.
There's Bino right there. Take a look. Paul Johnson had a trick play called up before the timeout. Calls another trick play, but well defended. You know, they talk about Jordan Jenkins, number 59 for Georgia. He's one of the youngest players on this team, a freshman, a true freshman, but they say he's one of the most disciplined. And Todd Grantham, the defensive coordinator, was saying in a lot of ways he's more disciplined than Jarvis Jones because Jarvis loves to go and attack and get the football, whereas Jordan Jenkins is very disciplined, is going to be an outstanding player for years to come.
Now, there was a penalty flag on the play. Let's see if they're discussing here what we were just talking about with regard to.
There's no flag on the play.
Yep.
It was a backwards pass. 4th down.
As we said, that's a legal play, even though it's to an offensive lineman. But it is 4th down and 5. They are going to bring on the field goal team and try to get points here. Chris Tanner, the kicker, has only attempted 2. He's made them both as long as 35. This is a 38-yard try. Try to get some points here. Boy, it'd be tough to come up with 2 empty drives after you've gotten into the Georgia red zone twice, and now a timeout called by the Bulldogs here. So they've burned 2 timeouts here in the first quarter.
Looks like Mark Richt might take a timeout to challenge the ruling.
Head coach of Georgia is challenging the ruling on the field that it was a backward pass. Play is under further review.
Boy, it clearly looked like a backwards pass. This is a risk because if you do not win the challenge, you lose your timeout. Now you're down to 1. Plus, this gives Paul Johnson maybe some time to think about it. It's 4th and 5.
Well, I think Mark Richt understands that if this isn't a legal play, that the chance of them making this field goal is significantly less. And the pass was definitely behind the line of scrimmage. Question was it a backwards pass?
Yeah, it's a backwards pass. He threw it.
That was close.
No?
It was pretty close. Take a look.
Let's look from this angle.
Yep. He throws it on the 30-yard line, and
that's very close. Right. I mean, it's right at it. That angle was better. You could see from that spot that why Richt, that's what he saw.
Yeah.
Why that it looked that close.
Well, and you saw the headlines when the one who threw the penalty flag was in the best position of any of us to see that. But the ruling on the field was that it was a forward pass.
To me, that's still backwards. If it was ruled a forward pass on the field, it'd probably be hard to overturn it by replay. I think it's the same thing here because it's ruled backwards on the field.
After further review, the ruling on the field stands.
Yeah.
Georgia will be charged with their second timeout, and they lose the opportunity to challenge during the remainder of the game.
I mean, that's big.
Fourth down.
You think 14-0, hey, you know, this might be easy, but you might want that challenge back in the 4th quarter. I mean, Georgia Tech is moving the ball on them. They already have 137 yards. The problem for Georgia Tech is, can it stop Georgia once the Bulldogs get the ball back? They haven't had to start with the football on their side of the field. Both possessions have started in Georgia Tech territory, at least right at midfield.
Yeah, if you're playing in a rivalry game, if there's any doubt as to whether it's a correct call, I think you want to save that challenge just in case you need that at the remainder of the game.
So 38-yard field goal try by Tanner to give Georgia Tech points. And he's got it. That's big for the Yellow Jackets after turning the ball over on the Georgia 1 on their last possession here in the Governor's Cup. Georgia needing 2 wins to play for BCS National Championship, leading 14-3. Aerial coverage being provided by the MetLife blimp. See how MetLife can provide the coverage you need. MetLife, I can do this. Back here at Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia. The Bulldogs know they'll play in the SEC Championship game next week. Georgia Tech will play in the Dr. Pepper ACC Championship. Tech will face Florida State. Georgia will likely play Alabama, assuming the Crimson Tide win today. And game day will be on hand in Atlanta next week for the SEC Championship game. Any way that Auburn beats Alabama today?
I don't think so. I think the question is, can Auburn score on Alabama?
Well, they couldn't score in Georgia just a few weeks ago, and that game was at Auburn. But if Alabama loses, then that brings A&M back into the picture, and LSU. LSU actually needs A&M in the picture because they win a tiebreaker with A&M. Here's Malcolm Mitchell on the return for Georgia. He gets creamed. It was Jameel Thomas who comes flying in there and crushes him at the 14-yard line.
Now, Jameel Thomas is the starting safety. Take a listen. Oof. That's the kind of players you need for Georgia Tech. You need some emotional plays. You're down 2 scores in this football game early. You need somebody to make a play. And the junior, Jameel Thomas, made a play on special team.
Finally, you win the field position battle. Let's see how Georgia handles this. They've got Keith Marshall in the game now at tailback. His first appearance, the other true freshman. He's from Raleigh, North Carolina. And Murray off the play fake will throw deep. Oh, Mitchell wide open. Mitchell all the way to the 27-yard line. A guy that started the year at cornerback moved to offense because of knee injuries to Michael Bennett and Marlon Brown. And Mitchell now with 34 catches, a 57-yard reception here. Well, just after Georgia Tech backs him up, big play for Georgia.
Yeah, great play call from Mike Bobo. And you sense the momentum changing, you take it right back. the Achilles heel of this Georgia Tech defense all year has been the big play in the secondary. Here's Malcolm Mitchell. He's going to run a corner route. Take a look at Jamea Thomas. There's a little bit of miscommunication between he and the other safety, Johnson, and nobody picks up Malcolm Mitchell. He just runs right down the field. This is an easy throw and catch between Aaron Murray and Mitchell. And Aaron Murray's had a lot of success against his Georgia Tech secondary. The last 2 years, he's averaging over 250 yards a game, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. Continues to reap the benefits of poor communication in the secondary for Georgia Tech.
Murray leading the nation in passing efficiency entering today. And a first down inside the Georgia Tech 30-yard line. And here's Gurley, or Marshall rather, inside the 20. Marshall broke a tackle and pushed out. Right here, a big haul for Marshall. He's in. Touchdown, Georgia. That's the 7th touchdown for Marshall and the 3rd on the ground already for the Bulldogs. 2 for Gurley, 1 for Marshall, and it's about to be 21-3 Georgia.
As good as those 2 freshman backs are, I'm not sure there's a back in the SEC that couldn't run for a touchdown on that last hole. And it was a huge hole. Nose guard TJ Barnes was just blocked completely out of the play for an easy score.
There's some backs in other conferences and other levels maybe of football that could have run for a touchdown there as well. So 21-3 Georgia.
And this is a Georgia offensive line that has kind of coalesced as the season has gone on. And if they can combine this rushing attack with Aaron Murray through the air, who knows what can happen next week.
Georgia in command on Georgia Tech. Bulldogs trying to get their 11th win. That hasn't happened since 2007. Their last SEC title was 2005. They lost to LSU in the championship game last week, looking to face likely Alabama next week. Through the end zone, and will come out to the 25-yard line for the Yellow Jackets. Let's look at this week's BCS standings, brought to you by Allstate. Now, Oregon's still in the mix, depending on what happens. Seems like if Notre Dame loses, then so many things are up for grabs. But if Notre Dame wins, it's pretty simple then, right? In terms of the championship?
It's very simple, yeah. But there's no guarantee that Notre Dame wins. And if they don't, then certainly it's Armageddon. It's anybody's game. And there's 3 or 4 teams that could potentially get into that second spot.
Right now, in your opinion, who's the best team in college football?
That's a great question.
Answer it. Think about it as Vad Lee hands it off to Lasky Lee, the backup quarterback, redshirt freshman. He'll go 2 series, and then again, Paul Johnson will decide who will play after him.
Yeah, and I know that Paul Johnson's very excited about Vad Lee, as are most Georgia Tech fans. The game he played against North Carolina, as you can see, very productive. He's got that it factor. He's very quick. He's got a little bit of a better arm than Tevin Washington. Tevin Washington's a little bit more senior, has the leadership, and can check this offense at the line of scrimmage. There's no question Vad Lee is talented.
Here's God high on the pitch. And ball came out, but he was out of bounds, just short of the first down. Christian Robinson on the stop. Now, seriously, who's the best team in college football? You don't evade that question.
You know, I don't think we have to have that answer right now, right? I think the answer to that question, all that matters is at the BCS National Championship game. And to me, that's the only time we need to answer that question.
All right. If Notre Dame wins tonight, I think you have to say it's Notre Dame.
I don't think you have to say anything. I think you have to say something after the national championship game, right?
I don't want to talk about that in a month. I want to talk about it now. 3rd and 1. Lee will keep and get the first down out near the 40-yard line.
Lee keeps and picks up the 10th first down.
Again, Georgia Tech has shown that it can move the ball. They got 126 rushing yards already. Twice in the last 4 matchups, Georgia in this rivalry game has given up over 400 rushing yards to Tech.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching how Vad Lee, how the offense differs between Tevin Washington and Vad Lee. Again, as we mentioned, he brings a little bit more of the equation of throwing the football off of play action than does Washington.
Lee pitching. And inside the 40 is Deion Hill out near the 44-yard line. So that's a 5-yard gain. And Damian Swan, either frustrated or shaken up for a moment, hops to his feet.
I know Georgia's given up some yards on the ground in this game, but there haven't been a lot of big explosive plays. This Georgia Tech offense leads the country in plus 25 runs on the ground, and so far they haven't had that. They've had 6 or 7 yard chunks, but been impressed with the pursuit of the Georgia linebackers to the football.
Here's Lasky straight ahead of the 48. He'll come up just short of a first down. So 3rd and 1. Garrison Smith got him to the ground.
Led the stop for the Dogs.
You know, Paul Johnson's done a terrific job at Georgia Tech. You think about 16 straight years of bowl eligibility, 4th longest in the BCS. He's only been there for 5 years, but we were talking about our meetings last night. This offense he runs, it's a great equalizer against teams where maybe they don't match up against personnel-wise. Lee on the keeper again. Another Georgia Tech first down into Georgia territory for the 3rd time here in the first half.
Interesting look from Georgia on the last series. They bring the will right up on the line of scrimmage. Kwame Geathers takes the dive and it opens up the scene. Good read from Vad Lee in short yardage situations. It looks like Georgia wants to press the issue. Nice adjustment from Vad Lee.
10th game this year that Vad Lee has played in, closing in on 500 rushing yards. David Sims on the carry, about 3 to the 45-yard line. Ogletree in there for Georgia.
That's a 3-yard gain.
The thing that's so difficult against this offense is you've got to play the dive. You've got to have the discipline if you're Georgia defensively to tackle that dive every single time, because as soon as you don't, that dive can beat you right up the middle.
Lee had to keep it there. The pitch was covered, and then Jenkins came in high for the tackle. Here it's 21-3, Reese. Georgia in command. Georgia Tech, though, moving the ball again in the Georgia defense. On 3rd and 5. Jarvis Jones with a big hit on Sims. Only a gain of 1. It's 4th down.
When you have the best defensive player in all of college football, you're going to use him to stop any kind of offense, whether you're throwing it, running it, run the option. Jarvis Jones is a weapon in any hand, and that time they fired him off the edge, and he comes up with a negative play. And this is no question 4-down territory for Paul Johnson, especially down 21-3.
Lee in trouble. Nowhere to go. But he's not down yet. Now he is wrapped up in midfield. Georgia takes over. Garrison Smith got the push for Georgia. Ogletree, Jenkins, Jarvis Jones, they're all back there. So Georgia Tech turns it over on downs, and Georgia with the football at midfield again.
ESPN College Football, brought to you by the Buick Verano, unexpected luxury in a car this size, and Carhartt, rugged workwear since 1889.
Vince Dooley led Georgia to the 1980 National Championship. And 32 years later, they are in a position to possibly get there again. They need to win today and then knock off probably Alabama in the SEC. I'm just going to guess Alabama in the SEC championship game next week in Atlanta. Game day will be there. And if they do that, they will play for a national title. One loss, that was against South Carolina. Have not played Alabama, not played LSU this year. Murray hit and sacked. Jeremiah Atalchu battling the flu, fighting through it, and comes up with a big play.
Play action. Aaron Murray wanted to hit Malcolm Mitchell down the middle of the field. He had him open and just double clutched it, and that gave Atalchu an opportunity to get around. Great effort by Atalchu, playing not at 100%. That was pretty obvious being down on the field in pregame warmups. He was trying to conserve as much energy as possible, but you got to give him credit for coming out here in a rivalry game and giving his effort.
8th sack of the season. Here's Gurley on the run, and Gurley threw a seam. There's a penalty flag down. Somebody got tackled. John Theus, the true freshman right tackle, was on top of Atalchu. So that 15-yard run negated.
Holding. 68 of the offense. 10 yards for previous spot. Second down.
That's on Chris Burnett. Let's check in with Jen.
Thanks, Dave. Well, you guys are talking about Atalchu and his flu-like symptoms. They actually thought he had mono this week. It was that bad. They had him get tested for it. It was negative. But they were pretty much keeping him quarantined away from the whole team. I did talk to him right before the game, asked him how he was feeling. He said, I've got a lot of fluids in me. I should be okay. But obviously, it'll be interesting to see if he can last all 60 minutes and make big plays like that.
Well, I also noticed, Jen, during pregame when Paul Johnson came on the bench there to sit next to you, you moved down a little bit because...
Yeah, well, he's got the flu, too. I was trying to keep my distance, but still be able to hear him.
2nd and 27. They dump it off to Gurley. He's up to the 40-yard line, so he got 8 yards back. Brandon Watts on the tackle. 3rd and long coming up.
That's going to happen from time to time. You know, guys get sick. I mean, you hear this all the time. We go back all the way to Michael Jordan and that performance he had in the playoffs when he had the flu. And he kind of ruined it for everybody, right? Because the ball was raised so high. He said, hey, you got the flu? No problem. Paul Johnson says, get out here. Michael Jordan did it in the playoffs.
Surprised with all the studying you had to do at Michigan and the film study, you had time to watch that series.
No, I wouldn't miss that.
There's a little sarcasm if you didn't catch that. Here's Murray. And a diving attempt. Incomplete. It would have been a first down if it was caught. Chris Conley along the sideline couldn't hang on, and Georgia Tech finally comes up with a stop.
He was trying to get Chris Conley. Conley did a nice job extending the play here. The ball is thrown in a good position to go down and get it. And the ball just comes out on the sideline right there. You can see it. Good effort by Conley.
Yeah, when you go to the ground, even if you're out of bounds, you have to maintain possession through the catch, and clearly he did not. So first punt of the game. Colin Barber booting it away. And Jamal Golden, the return man, got a couple of kick returns for touchdowns. And fair caught at the 18-yard line. I don't know if you can hear through our microphones, but the Georgia coaches box is right next to us, and they were quite upset about that 3rd down play on offense.
This Georgia Tech offense comes in very explosive with the triple option, but Georgia's had some success stopping it, pinching the defensive tackle and letting the linebacker scrape to the outside. The linebacker takes the pitch, nowhere to go for this offense, and then they switch it up, and this time they run Christian Robinson through the A-gap and allow Ogletree to run to the pitch. Different looks from Georgia against this triple option have had some success. Georgia Tech, if they're going to get back in this football game, they have to punch the football, and they've moved it, as you can see, with time of possession and yardage on the ground. They just have not been able to get it in the end zone.
Vadley will get his 2nd series at quarterback for Georgia Tech. First down at the 18-yard line, and a rare pass play out on the flat to Waller, and he's slammed down by Ogletree, but a 9-yard gain. Brian, you heard Mark Richt tell Jen Brown during game day that, hey, 2 weeks now in practice, live hitting, full pads against ourselves, playing Georgia Southern last week, another option team. Does it really help week to week to do that?
I don't think there's any question it helps against an offense like this, just because the offensive line plays so differently in the triple option, firing off the ball and trying to cut both the defensive line and the linebackers. You've got to get used to that, to use your hands to play off those blocks, stay on your feet, and get to the edge to tackle.
They give it to the B-back. Lasky, the first man through, brought down after he apparently got a first down. Ogletree on the stop. John Jenkins there as well.
It's also a conditioning thing for the defensive line, especially a defensive line as big as Georgia with Jenkins and Gathers. For them to get blocked down to the ground, they have to get back up, chase, and not know exactly where the football is. Takes a lot of energy out of that line.
Lasky again, and a power run up the gut for about 6.
last 8 carries.
And an official timeout and a couple of players down. Finch, the starting center, who outweighs those nose tackles Jenkins and Geathers, or actually is outweighed, I should say, by about 60 pounds on each guy.
Oh, he's got a tough job, and Jay Finch has been one of their best players up front all year long. 285 pounds, as you say. He's so quick, though. You can see right here he is, and look how much bigger Jenkins is than he is. They get tied up, and looks like he may have got whipped. Yeah, it looked like his right knee got hit there by Garrison Smith.
Well, he did a pretty good job, though, getting into him and turning him. That's hard to do on a fight. I mean, the coach has said it's like bench pressing 400 pounds every play.
Absolutely.
So you got Catlin Alford, sophomore, in there now at center to work on Jenkins. And Jenkins got blocked that time by Alford, and Vadley on the keeper got close to the first down. So it'll be 3rd down and about a yard. Ray Drew cleaned up Lee.
John Jenkins
And here comes Jay Finch back into the game, and the happiest guy to see Jay Finch is probably Alford, the backup, because that's a tough duty. If you're ever going to have to come in and play, you don't want it to be against John Jenkins at 360 pounds.
Tech 4 of 6 on 3rd down. 3rd and 2. And a penalty flag. Movement on the Yellow Jackets.
Ball start. 77 of the offense. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
That's their best offensive lineman. Uzi, a preseason All-American right guard who moved.
That's a huge penalty, because here Uzi is right here at the right guard position. It's a little wiggle, but that's a big penalty for a team like Georgia Tech to go from a 3rd and 2 to a 3rd and 7. Completely changes their percentage of conversion.
Yeah, they've only thrown 2 passes so far. And Lee is a better passer than Tevin Washington, and he'll throw here. And he's going to air it out down the sideline, and incomplete. Cummings wanted a flag on the receiver for offensive pass interference.
Personal foul. Roughing the passer. 29 to defense. 15 yards. Automatic 1st down.
But Jarvis Jones bails out Georgia Tech with a roughing the passer call. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, yeah, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Took 4 steps.
That's going to get called every single time. And on the outside, Sanders Cummings with great coverage, and he's got as much right to that ball as the receiver, and that should have been a penalty on Jackson. That's offensive pass interference, very clearly. Understandably why the Georgia fans are upset that that wasn't at least offsetting penalties.
Usually if you take more than 2 steps, they're going to get you 2 for roughing the quarterback. That was at least 4 steps. Jones should have known better. 1st down on the Tech 47, and another pass play. And Lee throwing it up for grabs, and Rambo with the interception. Already has a fumble recovery, and here he goes on the return. Rambo up to the 30-yard line and to the 33.
As a young quarterback, you have to understand that you're not going to tie the football game up in one play. You don't have to get it back at all in one chunk. This is just a hope throw. Throw it down there and hope something good happens, and Rambo makes him pay. You're going to see it's not there initially. The ball should be gone now. Then you take another step and just kind of throw it down there, and Bakari Rambo, one of the best safeties in all of college football, is going to make that play.
And with 16 career interceptions, that ties the great Jake Scott for the most in school history. There's Marshall up the middle for 5 yards, brought down by Quayshawn Neely. And think about all the great players that they've had here at Georgia to go to the NFL, and Jake Scott, one of the best of all time.
Yeah, back to the late 60s with Jake Scott, and became the MVP of the Super Bowl. Heck of a football player.
Big hole for Marshall into Tech territory. Wrapped up at the 48 by Jabari Hunt Days. Rambo in this game has the interception. He's got 2 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery, and the offense, meanwhile, keeps moving.
Yeah, well, you continue to turn the football over. You put your defense in a bind, and this offensive line for Georgia is manhandling Georgia Tech. They've got no answer for the ground game, and if I'm Mike Bobo, I'm going to continue to pound this ball with Gurley and with Marshall until they can prove they can stop it.
And Gurley trying to fight for yardage, got wrapped up with a point of attack by Hunt Days. So 2nd down and 10 coming up. Aaron Murray so far in this game 114 yards passing, just 8 pass plays though. Georgia able to do the damage on the ground. 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 by Gurley, 1 by Marshall. And a huge hole for Gurley. Past the 30 and to the 29. 20-yard run.
He was run out by Young.
There's some big holes coming through this offensive line. Dallas Lee, the guard, pulls around, gets a block, and you get Todd Gurley on the 2nd level. He is so big and so fast that it's very difficult for secondary players to get him on the ground.
Here's Gurley again, and another big running lane. Gurley inside the 10, all the way to the 5. He's closing in on his 8th 100-yard game of his true freshman season.
Again, it's been a power of back-to-back plays, and starting to remind a lot of people of number 34. I know they got 2 guys that they're comparing, but it might be Gurley that you compare.
Penalty flag down as Gurley is stopped. 12 of the 23 plays for Georgia have gone for longer than 10 yards. And most of those are run plays.
Illegal motion. Number 87 of the offense. 5-yard penalty. Still 1st down.
And Jay Rome, tight end.
And on that last play, that last run by Gurley, John Theus, the right tackle, got hurt. It looked like he twisted an ankle or something, and they had some question about getting a substitute in. His replacement is Mark Beard, who's a sophomore, who's a JUCO transfer in his first year at Georgia, and that's what Mark Richt does not want to see in this football game, is have any kind of injury with what's ahead of this football team.
He actually has Gates, who's played mostly left tackle and left guard, and they're in right tackle right now. Murray off play action, throws into the end zone, and it is caught. Touchdown, Rhett McGowan.
This is just the 8th catch of the year for Rhett McGowan. Good concentration as that Sweeting came in to try to knock that football away, but McGowan very sure-handed. Another touchdown for Georgia.
29 touchdown pass for Murray after 35 a year ago. 98 now in his career, 5th most in the history of the SEC. And the point after by Morgan makes it 28-3 Georgia.
Well, they've got it going on the ground with Gurley. They've got it going through the air with Aaron Murray, clicking on all cylinders for Georgia.
Back at Georgia. Time for our Aflac trivia question. Mark Richt's winning percentage, 4th highest among active coaches. Who are the coaches with the higher winning percentages?
Oh.
Richt in his 12th season at Georgia.
One comes to mind, I think, is coaching right now.
Right now,
as
where?
we speak.
In another game.
Yes.
You mean for that team in Ohio?
Maybe.
What do you call him?
Ohio.
Sellout.
Your former partner. Told you I'd get you in the Aflac.
Out of bounds, it'll come out to the 25. Let's check in with Reese.
All right, Dave, just a few minutes away from the Lexus halftime report. We'll get you up to date on Michigan and Ohio State on ABC. Buckeyes just scored. They're up 16-14. We'll tell you how that's happening. Look ahead to Notre Dame and USC, which is on ABC tonight. And all kinds of things going on. Virginia Tech trying to get bowl eligible. Pittsburgh's putting it on. Rutgers, Louisville also struggling. Highlights of all of it coming up.
No, just a great day to be a college football fan. No reason to get it from the couch till midnight Eastern once that Notre Dame USC game is done.
Don't run out of leftovers from Thursday. You're in good shape.
Tevin Washington back in there at quarterback and throws a strike that's dropped at the 48 by Jeremy Moore. Incomplete.
Well, we had a couple of series with Vad Lee, and now it's Tevin Washington's chance again, and they don't throw the ball very often. And if you're a wide receiver who plays for Georgia Tech, when you get that chance, you got to make that play. Not going to see many balls. Jeremy Moore down in this rivalry game. You got to make that play for your quarterback.
You know, one of the things that's been so impressive about Georgia today is all the talk this week about would they overlook Georgia Tech, looking ahead to the SEC championship game, but they came out right from the kickoff playing extremely fast and hard. Washington over the middle, got a man wide open. It's Jeff Green, and he picks up the first down. Picked up and body slammed. The Georgia fans are going nuts as Rambo just lit him up along the sideline.
These are two of the more physical safeties in all of college football, Rambo and Williams, and big wide receivers for Georgia Tech. You got to keep leverage, and Rambo gets underneath him, and those are the kinds of statement hits that you put on tape for teams that you're going to see later on in the year.
There's an MMA takedown there. I'm sure there's proper terminology for that, but
body slam.
And the pitch to Bostic gets past Jones and near the first down. Robinson on the tackle, gain of 11. And Georgia Tech, you would think it has to get a touchdown on this drive with 2 minutes to go in the half. Hasn't shown that they can stop Georgia. And the Bulldog offense plus the turnovers have hurt the Yellow Jackets. A fumble on the 1 yard line, an interception, also a turnover on downs. Washington dumps it off to Godhigh. He gets wrapped up and thrown down by Ogletree. Some vicious tackles going on by the Georgia Bulldogs. Think they're hungry for a BCS championship? Up 28-3.
Godhigh is only 5'7", 180 pounds. It just looks like a rag doll with Ogletree wraps him up. And you talk about earlier in the year, Sean Williams calling out his team saying they're soft. Well, there's no soft in this Georgia defense today.
Close to another first down. David Sims. Georgia Tech has all of its timeouts remaining and will use one here. They've been in Georgia territory a bunch today, but only 3 points to show for it. Looking to get more here before the end of the half.
Charge timeout, Georgia Tech. Their first charge timeout of the half. 33 timeout. Please reset the clock.
Time to answer today's Aflac trivia question.
It's got to be Urban Meyer. And then my other thought was, in the Mountain West Conference, TCU played a lot of games. I know Gary Patterson had a lot of success. That'd be my two guesses.
That's good. And then Bob Stoops is the other.
Yeah.
Mark Richt has not won an SEC title since 2005, but he'll be in the SEC title game for the fifth time overall. They're 2-2 in those games. And third or second straight. It's going to be close here. Depends on the spot. Right now it looks like they got it based on the spot. Sims brought down by Washington. And Georgia last year was in the game at the half against LSU, then ended up getting beaten soundly in the second half. But based on what A&M did to Alabama, if that's the matchup, and given the potency of this Georgia offense with those backs and then Aaron Murray, they could give Alabama some problems if they play next week.
Well, I think Texas A&M has a completely different offense than the University of Georgia. Georgia's a pro style with kind of a physical downhill running game with Gurley and with Marshall, and then the ability to throw the ball off and play action. A&M was completely different for the up-tempo, fast-paced, Johnny Manziel all over the field. I think Georgia's offense plays a little bit more into the hands of a physical Alabama defense. So I think that it's going to be a little bit of a different football game, and Alabama's strengths play well against Georgia's strengths.
Georgia Tech going for it on 4th down and inches. Just outside a minute remaining in the half, trailing by 25. And they've been without Norman Smith today. Maybe their best offensive player. He's out with an ankle injury. Washington will keep and darts forward past the 1st down marker.
Now, if you're Georgia Tech, you need to get up on the ball. You don't want to lose any time and call the next play and snap it before you lose any more time off the clock.
Still have 2 timeouts remaining as they reset the chains, and now they start the clock. And they line up with a pistol formation. And Washington to Godhigh made the catch inside the 35, but short of the 1st down, so the clock runs.
Pass is complete to Godhigh.
And Georgia Tech's taking a lot of time. This is not something they're used to. The 2-minute drill is not something that they do particularly well. It's just not their style of play.
And 20 seconds have gone by since the last snap. Washington throwing again, caught by Godhigh, 1st down. Again, he gets taken down hard by Ogletree. The clock will stop to reset the chains inside the 30-yard line.
Paul Johnson's out almost to the numbers trying to communicate what play he wants called for Tevin Washington. But again, you need to get up there. You're losing precious seconds here, 4 or 5 seconds before you snap the football.
Washington, ton of time, and incomplete. Here's the other thing. You don't even know if your quarterback can throw it that far to the end zone. You got 14 seconds left. I mean, at this point, you're going to have to take some shots into the end zone or just settle for 3.
Well, I know Tevin Washington doesn't have the strongest arm, but in this situation, you got to throw the football. You got to get enough yards here. You can't play for a field goal in this situation. You're down 28-3, for goodness sake. So if Washington can't get the ball to the end zone, then put Vad Lee in, because he's got a little bit of a stronger arm.
14 seconds left, 2 timeouts remaining. Ball at the 28-yard line of Georgia. Play clock winding down. And Washington goes underneath, and it's incomplete. 8 seconds left. Trying for Bostic. So now, do you handle this play, just get some more yards here for the field goal, or do you take a shot?
The way that Tevin Washington's throwing the ball right now, you'd have more of a shot of just throwing a Hail Mary into the end zone than running 3 guys vertical. But again, this is not what Georgia Tech does particularly well, so it's not like they can just pull out a 2-minute offense whenever they want.
Be about a 47-yard field goal from here. Chris Tanner made a 38-yarder earlier in the game, and that's his season high. And Georgia calls a timeout after seeing the alignment by the Georgia Tech offense.
That is the last charge timeout of the half.
Now Georgia out of timeouts. Aerial coverage being provided by the MetLife blimp. See how MetLife can provide the coverage you need. MetLife, I can do this.
Great senior day atmosphere here. You know, you can just tell in Athens, Georgia, that there's 6, 7, or 8 Saturdays a year where this town just kind of morphs into a sea of red, and a fantastic scene for these seniors on their last day playing in this stadium. And it's got to be an emotional one.
Plus, you've got several juniors who are NFL prospects who may be playing their final games, including Jarvis Jones, who is at the top of both Todd McShay and Mel Kiper's big boards as the #1 pick in the draft. He's a finalist for the Nagurski and Lombardi Awards, as well as the Bednarik, along with Manti Te'o and Jadeveon Clowney. 8 seconds remaining. 1 timeout. Ball at the 28 of Georgia. And they're going to run it here. Washington, with 2 seconds left, got out of bounds. Did the clock stop or not? Looked like there was a second left.
That was about as close as you want to get if you're Paul Johnson. 8 seconds to run the option there, and he had about 7 seconds. I think he got the timeout with 1 second.
Well, that'll allow them to try a shorter field goal to at least get points and make it a 3-possession game. So they're going to put 2 seconds on the clock. Let's see if that's accurate. 4-3. Maybe it could have been going to 3.
Yeah, you see Paul Johnson right here.
Question is, was he out of bounds? Should the clock have stopped anyway? Was he out of bounds on the sideline there? Anyway, whatever. 2 seconds. They probably were going to take a shot to the end zone anyway. They're going for 3.
2 second, 1 second.
But overall, Georgia very impressive from the get-go. That first drive, mixing the run and the pass. Granted, they had the short field to start the possession, but then not quitting after Georgia Tech just running over them. But Bakari Rambo kept fighting and stripped the ball on the 1-yard line. That was a huge play. He returned it near midfield, and then Georgia scored quickly after that to go up 14-0. 36-yard try by Tanner, who was good from 38 earlier. No good, and it's 28-3 at halftime. Georgia's 1/2 away from another victory, leading into its SEC title game next week, likely against Alabama. Winner of that playing for the BCS National Championship in Miami. Here's Jen.
Thanks, Coach. Your defense showing just how physical they can be there. They've been able to limit those explosive plays. How do you assess their play so far?
Pretty good. You know, that first drive, second drive, whatever it was, when they got deep in our territory, we were fortunate to get the turnover right there. We got to win first down a little bit better. When we win first down, we got a chance. If we don't win first down, they're just going to keep going down the field today. So anyway, not bad. Speaking of that, up by 25, what will be the message to that team? Because we've seen them come back when they're down at the half in 2008. Absolutely. That's the story. You can give the speech. All right, thanks, Coach. Dave.
That was what he told us yesterday. He's trying to stay very even keel, knowing that everybody's talking about the Alabama SEC title game. Lexus halftime report in Reese. It's Gurley into the end zone. Hall for Marshall is in. Touchdown, Georgia. Saying Rambo with the interception. Play action. Throws into the end zone. And it is caught. You're watching the SEC on ESPN. Largest lead for Georgia in its series with Georgia Tech at halftime in a decade. The Bulldogs won half and then one more win away, perhaps, from a shot at a BCS championship. And Ron Griese was an impressive first half. We wondered, would they look ahead to the SEC title game and look past Georgia Tech, but it didn't happen.
No, and the most impressive thing to me was how physical Georgia was on defense, stopping the option and tackling in a physical nature, and then on offense, running the football. This is SEC style running of the football. You're going to see a power double team up to the backside linebacker and then pull Chris Burnett from the offensive guard position. You get these kinds of holes to Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall, they're going to make you pay. The down block from Theus, the freshman, allows the guard to get around. Dallas Lee gets on the second level. And look at the size of these holes. I know Georgia Tech's not a great defense, but if you're a Bulldog fan, you've got to be encouraged by what you've seen from a physical nature from Georgia in the first half.
Georgia had the ball for only 8.5 minutes. They ran half the plays that Georgia Tech did, but they outgained them and obviously outscored them 28-3 at the break. Now it's interesting, Georgia Tech could play in a BCS championship game or a BCS bowl game because it plays in the Dr. Pepper ACC championship game.
Well, they're going to have a hard time beating Florida State with the way they played in the first half here.
I mean, they could finish 6-8 because right now they're 6-5. If they lose this one and then lose next week, they'd be 6-7 with that bowl game that they have to get a waiver for, and probably would. Here's Jen.
Thanks, Dave. Well, I talked to Paul Johnson coming out of the half. I asked him what they needed to do to slow down Georgia's offense, especially that rushing attack. He said, didn't really have an answer for me. He said, we just need to finish those blocks. We need to run to the football. I asked him offensively what they needed to do to get some points on the board. He said, look, we got so far behind. We had 16 first downs. We really need to finish drives. That was his message to his team. Finish drives if we want to try to come back and win this football game.
I think the big one was that opening drive as they pitch it here to Days, and he gets hit but keeps going and then drives the pile to the 30. You remember on that initial drive by Georgia Tech, they got it down to the 1, but Bakari Rambo stripped the ball and Georgia Tech turned it over. Georgia turned that into a touchdown and a 14-0 lead.
Yeah, when you get behind with Georgia Tech with this style of offense, as Coach Johnson said, it's very difficult to come from behind. And you don't throw the ball, you don't have that skill set, and so you're going to continue to see the option. And they've got to find some way to punch the football in once they get inside the red zone.
Good play by Kwame Gathers to get away from an offensive lineman and make the tackle. There is a penalty flag down.
That's tough duty for Jay Finch. We talked about Finch in the first half. The center, 285 pounds, going up against Kwame Gathers at 360 pounds. Finch has held his own through the course of this game. Not only does he have to block Gathers, but then he gets the replacement of Jenkins coming in at the nose guard. So you've got two guys 360 plus that he's got to block every single snap.
And the snap over the head of Washington. It bounces to him. He takes a seat, and Georgia Tech will have to punt. Almost another turnover, but a fortunate bounce. Yellow Jackets got to kick it anyway.
Well, talking about Finch, he's got to get his hands up, and sometimes that ball, you just try to get it back as fast as you can so that he can get his hands on the nose tackle. And of everybody on this field today, the guy with the toughest job, in my opinion, is number 50, Jay Finch. No question.
If I told you this was Georgia Tech's first punt, would you be surprised? That's their first punt. Giving up 28 points. Sean Poole booting it away. And it takes a Georgia Tech bounce. It'll be Georgia ball at the 40-yard line.
Well, that's good and bad when you don't punt. That means you're moving the ball on offense, but you also could be turning it over, which they have.
And Todd Gurley, who in that first half had 88 rushing yards. He's already over 1,100 on the season. The first 1,000-yard rusher at Georgia since Noshawn Moreno in 2008. And the first true freshman with 1,000 yards in a single season since the great Herschel Walker did it in their national championship season of 1980. And remember, Isaiah Crowell was supposed to be the starting running back, but some off-the-field issues, was dismissed by the team. He's now at Alabama State. Crowell was very good last year. Gurley comes in as a true freshman, wins the starting job, and has become a star player. Murray to the tight end, Lynch, for about 6 on 1st and 10.
And if I'm Mike Bobo and I'm Mark Richt, I'm going to be very careful with Todd Gurley in the second half. I want him as fresh as possible for next week.
Gurley gets maybe 2 on 2nd down. It'll bring up 3rd down and short.
But it's interesting, Georgia continuing with the hurry up that we saw in the first half. And you know, I think it's been successful for them in the first half. Why not continue to do it in the second half here and continue to establish rhythm?
Murray with the completion on 3rd and short. Conley with the grab. And it's a 1st down. Wrapped up by Brandon Watts.
Conley's a guy that's come on, you know, since the injury to Malcolm Brown. We know about the injury to Mike Bennett, and Conley's been a guy that they like in the slot. He's got the size to make plays.
There's Gurley, and great balance by Gurley momentarily. Eventually cut down at the 41-yard line by Thomas. 6 more yards for Gurley, closing in on another 100-yard day.
The thing that sticks out about Gurley is his strength and his lower body. His legs just keep moving. He gets off balance but doesn't go down, and you almost force a secondary to go low to get him on the ground.
Mitchell in the shade makes the grab inside the 30. That'll be a 1st down at the 27-yard line for Georgia. Now, Georgia, a lot of people have criticized their schedule. Hard to do when you play in the SEC and when you play in the East, but you know, South Carolina and Florida, those are really the two main teams that they've played. They lost to South Carolina as Marshall is tripped up at the line of scrimmage, got maybe a couple.
They were obviously beneficiaries of the two new additions to the SEC. When Missouri came into the league, Georgia was on the schedule, and Georgia avoided Alabama. That's who they would have played this year had Missouri not joined the SEC.
So they don't play Alabama, don't play LSU, don't play A&M. Yeah, they could find themselves. Well, they'll play Alabama next week, but
we're going to find out.
Yeah.
We're going to find out just a little later than what some people would have hoped.
Murray with time, open man, caught, touchdown, Jay Rome. First touchdown of the year for Jay Rome. It's 34-3.
Just play action. It's a double post. Jay Rome, number 87, working on the safety. And again, miscommunication. And this Georgia Tech, I haven't seen a whole lot of defensive secondaries that have given up more big plays than Georgia Tech. And right now, it's dealer's choice for Aaron Murray.
That's a 30th touchdown pass for Murray on the season, giving him 65 over the last 2 seasons. 35-3 as Morgan puts it through. It is all Georgia here in the Governor's Cup. Aaron Murray with 30 TD passes now in the season for the 2nd straight year. Here in Athens, where Georgia's looking for win number 11, 3rd in the BCS standings. We'll play in Atlanta. Game day will be there for the SEC championship game. Alabama will be the opponent if the Tide beats Auburn today in Tuscaloosa. And that will essentially be a semifinal. Winner will play in the BCS championship game against Notre Dame if it wins today. Or who knows if Notre Dame loses today to USC. On Aaron Murray with another touchdown pass here in the 2nd half, giving him 89 for his career, and he is now tied with Peyton Manning for the 2nd most in SEC history, and Murray still has a season to go if he decides to come back.
Well, it's a credit to him. It's a credit to his durability, number one, to stay healthy and play as long as he has, and then it's also a credit to his preparation. I mean, we talked with Coach Mark Richt yesterday, and he said there's nobody that compares to the preparation that Aaron Murray puts in on a week-in and week-out basis, and I think you're seeing the fruits of that in the way that he's played this year.
David Sims couldn't tell if he was on top of a player or was he down, and they're going to rule him down after a gain of 2. It was interesting when we were talking with Richt yesterday about Aaron Murray, and he said, you know, he looked at you, Brian. He said, you know, he's got some of your qualities in terms of his smarts and his ability to read defenses. Not 6'5", 240.
Yeah. Well, when you're not don't have those measurables from the height and the speed and the arm strength, then you better supplement with understanding and preparation and knowledge and leadership. And those are all the things that Aaron Murray has in spades.
Days wrapped up for a loss by Ogletree, bringing up 3rd down and long. This is not a great quarterback draft, at least not in comparison to last year. And there's been some talk that Murray, who is a junior, might come out. He's graduated, so.
You know, I've heard a lot of that talk. And to me, if I'm an NFL executive and a GM, I'm not going to watch Aaron Murray versus Kentucky. I'm not going to watch Aaron Murray against Ole Miss. I'm going to watch Aaron Murray against South Carolina. I'm going to watch Aaron Murray against Alabama. I'm going to watch Aaron Murray against Florida. Those defenses that I know are going to present the biggest challenge, and when the lights are the brightest, how does Aaron Murray play? And so far this year, he hasn't played great in those games.
No, he's not. He'll get a chance next week, though. Ogletree just sticks his face in the receiver's grill. Got high, brings him down, and that'll be another punt for Georgia Tech. And Murray will get his chance. He'll get his chance against likely Alabama next week.
And so next week's game, in my opinion, with respect to Aaron Murray, next week's game is going to play huge into the decision at the end of the year as to whether he goes or comes back. If he doesn't play well in that Alabama game, I would counsel him to come back and play another year.
They're making some comparisons with, you know, Andy Dalton, and didn't have the greatest size or arm strength, but Andy Dalton led him to a Rose Bowl win. And Obviously, the scouts saw that, and after the interviews and all that, Dalton went way up the board. That punt out of bounds, so Georgia's going to have the ball around midfield, already leading 35-3, and it might get a lot worse.
ESPN College Football, brought to you by Allstate. Allstate is a proud sponsor of the Allstate Sugar Bowl. Are you in good hands? And Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
The two true freshmen, Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall, known around these parts as Gershel, with almost 150 yards on the ground. Of course, Herschel Walker back in 1980 is a true freshman. Almost 1,700 rushing yards, led them to a national title. And Gurley and Marshall trying to do the same thing here in 2012 as the Bulldogs are third in the BCS standings. Looks like they're going to be one win away from playing for a national championship. Murray downfield, King wide open, could not pull it in at the 10. And the flag down here, Reese's Marshall is tackled at the 45-yard line. That's a surprise that Pitt playing that well with so much on the line for Rutgers.
61 of the offense, 10 yards the previous spot, second down.
It's David Andrews, the center, first-year starter. It's been for the Big East, it's been a much better year than a lot of people anticipated with the play of Rutgers before today, and Louisville's also trailing. Cincinnati, Butch Jones, a guy that for some reason doesn't get a lot of talk when it comes to bigger jobs. It's worked for D'Antonio and Brian Kelly. You would think that Jones will start getting some phone calls here.
There's going to be some jobs open, so there may be some phone calls.
Doug Marrone at Syracuse done a good job. 5-2 in the Big East. Long throw by Murray. King on the catch. And close to a first down at the 40-yard line. Let's check in with Jen down on the field.
Thanks, Dave. Well, I actually got to catch up with Herschel Walker before the game, and I asked him about Marshall and Gurley, or Gershel as we call him, what he thought. He said he thought that they were both wonderful backs, and he feels that both of them are going to keep Georgia on top for years. It's pretty cool being down here on the bench, seeing them sitting next to each other, number 3, number 4. It's almost like Herschel himself is down here.
I wonder if Herschel's been teaching me the MMA moves. We saw some tackles by the defense. That's a profession that Herschel got into after his playing days. Marshall stopped short of the first down. That'll be 4th and 1.
Well, what a great legend to have a touch point with if you're a young true freshman, even though you might not see him every day. Just to have some kind of communication with him is special.
Now Georgia Tech not lined up. That was like stealing right there. Murray, quarterback sneak, gets the first down. First down, Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Marshall take this series. In fact, if I were Mark Richt, Mike Bobo, I don't know that I would play Todd Gurley the rest of this game. I want him to be as fresh as he possibly can for next week, and plus get Keith Marshall a little bit, a few more looks, get him ready for next week as well.
Well, they got the ball at the 39-yard line of Georgia Tech. Here comes play action, and open in the middle of the field is the tight end Lynch. Another Georgia first down at the 23. 16 yards.
Nice play action. This is one of the more difficult throws a quarterback has to make. You turn your head, you got to pick up the defense when you turn around, and then throw a ball into traffic. Very well done by Aaron Murray, and that's a product of the preparation, knowing pre-snap what the defense is and then how they're going to react to the play film.
Out on the flat it goes to Wooten, and he's inside the 20. Thomas on the tackle. We talked about the freshman running backs. They've got some good young receivers. Malcolm Mitchell has stepped up, a sophomore. Wooten, a junior. Chris Conley, again, I know you like. He's just a sophomore. And they're really high at quarterback on Hudson Mason, who is a junior backup, but their hope is to redshirt him this season. Marshall on the pitch. First down and more. Inside the 5. And touchdown. Gershel has combined for 4 scores. Gurley 2, Marshall 2, and it's 41-3.
They just pitch on the outside, and he got that football over the line before his knee came down. Great block on the outside by the fullback on the safety, and Marshall stretches for the touchdown.
7 possessions, 6 touchdowns. Had a little trouble there getting the ball down on the long snap, but the extra point is good.
6 minutes left in the third.
42-3. There have not been a lot of blowouts in this rivalry, but this, I would say, would qualify.
Physical play up front. This offensive line has continued to come off, getting good blocks from the fullbacks, and 2 outstanding freshman backs for the future of Georgia.
Georgia doing its part so far here today on ESPN. Knocking off Georgia Tech. It's 41-3 right now. They've got likely Alabama in the SEC title game next week, and the winner of that game will get a spot in the BCS National Championship. And another touchback. It will come out to the 25. Mateo Lyke, Jarvis Jones, and Jadeveon Clowney, a reason to watch defense. As terrific athletes as David Sims gets a couple of yards. You know, for a while, Teo was in the discussion for the Heisman Trophy, and that seems to have dissipated, but he's had just a fabulous year for Brian Kelly and that Notre Dame defense.
I don't think there's any reason why a purely defensive players can't win the Heisman. I don't understand that. You know, I think that there are some wonderful players. You know, I played with one of them in Charles Woodson, and he played on offense, and he returned punts and did a lot of those things and had explosive plays. But there's no reason guys like Jarvis Jones and Manti Te'o shouldn't be a part of that discussion, shouldn't be in New York, and shouldn't eventually win one of these Heisman trophies.
David Sims on the stop. Well, this year it seems to be so unclear after what Calvin Klein did last week, when it looked like it was his Heisman to lose and maybe he lost it, that maybe Te'o will get into the mix and get invited. You have to think somebody like Braxton Miller is going to get an invite with the numbers he put up at Ohio State.
But I still think that it's Johnny Manziel's Heisman to lose, quite honestly.
Would be the first freshman to win the award, as Sims is knocked down after a gain of 2. And if Notre Dame can win that game against USC, that obviously will help. But if Te'o has a big game, if he has not just the tackles, but if there's a sack or an interception, with all the nation watching.
Which, you know, it really shouldn't come down to that. He shouldn't have to have an interception or tip, or it shouldn't come down to that. It should come down to the body of work. But you know, that's just the way that award works.
David Sims powers near the first down marker with the backup quarterback, Max Wittek, who has thrown 9 passes, and when he was in there, it looked pretty good, but it's not Matt Barkley. What are the challenges for that offense against Notre Dame's D?
Well, I mean, that's one of the better front sevens in all of college football. You can argue at length about whether they're the best team, but that is one of the best front sevens on defense for Notre Dame. And I think it's going to be a challenge, even if it was Matt Barkley, because USC hasn't shown that they can run the ball with any kind of consistency. And when they rely just on throwing the ball, they've turned it over. So it's, to me, USC hasn't shown the kind of consistency to show that they can prove that they can beat Notre Dame in a game like this.
Washington gets the tackle. You know, going into the year when the schedule came out, everybody said, oh, that's the game there. If USC beats Notre Dame, then they'll play for the national championship. Well, here the roles are reversed. Notre Dame plays for the national championship if it wins that game against an SEC team that's had a bad year. So first down at midfield for Georgia Tech. Here's Bostic getting the pitch, and he's running free inside the 35 down to the 33 for 17 yards. 8 Eastern on ABC. Notre Dame trying to go undefeated in the regular season for the first time. They won that championship under Lou Holtz. USC, though, has dominated the series of late, including the Bush push 5-6 years ago, and Max Wittek, as we mentioned, getting the start at quarterback for the injured Barkley. We still have those 2 outstanding wide receivers.
Remember, you still have a redshirt freshman quarterback for Notre Dame. It's not signed, sealed, delivered, and that's a big question mark.
Lasky to the 30 for 3 yards.
You know, Everett Golson has certainly played well and played more consistently of late, but you know, sometimes you get into those rivalry games and the lights go on and you're a young player, things don't go exactly your way. You wonder how they respond, and you may see a little bit of that from Everett Golson tonight.
And what happens if they get behind? They get behind 14 points, so they have the firepower on offense to come back. Lasky first man through inside the 25, brought down by Ray Drew. Well, both of these teams here will be playing for a championship. Georgia for the SEC and maybe the national championship. And Georgia Tech will play in the Dr. Pepper ACC championship next week. It's really been a down year for the ACC, with the exception of Florida State and Clemson. But being in the same division, Florida State will play in Charlotte against Tech, with the winner going to the Orange Bowl. They're down 2. Washington trying to dive for it and comes up short. It'll be 4th and 1, and they'll go for it. John Jenkins is shaken up on the play, made the tackle, but is still down.
He was hit first by Jarvis Jones.
He's been such a big part of this defense. Obviously, the cornerstone of the 3-4 defense being the nose guard, and John Jenkins has been that guy the last 2 years for Georgia, and they ask him to do a lot. Be a huge loss if they lost him.
And you know, Brian, we often say at this point of the game in a blowout, we question why these guys are still out there, but especially in two straight weeks of getting cut every play.
Yeah.
For a defensive lineman, why are your starters out there?
Yeah, the likelihood of your defensive line specifically getting hurt in a game like this against an offense like this is significantly higher. I'm surprised guys like Jarvis Jones, Jenkins are still out there. You see he's right here in the middle of your screen.
Took a knee to the helmet, had a couple guys fall on top of him. It's not like Georgia has bad players behind him, too. I mean, the guys that are playing behind him are going to be all SEC players in 2 years. Well, we'll see if Rick starts to pull some of his guys on defense in the 4th quarter. But the starters are still out there. 4th and 1 for Georgia Tech. There's some confusion. No penalty flag. Washington on the keeper. Awfully close. He's actually short based on the spot.
It looked like the center snapped the ball before Washington was ready to receive it, and did a nice job just trying to find a way to get a first down.
Official timeout to measure the game.
Sometimes you come out and 4th down and you go on a quick count, and as soon as the center hears something, he snaps it.
He's short. Georgia ball. Second time that Georgia Tech has turned it over on downs.
And let's take a look. None of the other linemen are moving. You see, they haven't even come out of their stance, and Washington fumbles the snap, wasn't expecting it, and that was the backup center, Alford. You know, we saw Finch get hurt a little bit earlier in the game, and you wonder if there's just a little bit of miscommunication between Alford and Washington.
That's not 5 drives today by Georgia Tech that have been 10 plays or longer, and they have just 3 points. They've been able to move the ball against Georgia, but nothing to show for it. Ken Malcolm is in the game at running back, so maybe Gurley and Marshall are both done for the day, but Aaron Murray is still in there quarterback as he steps away from pressure and gets a couple of yards.
Now, I think that's a prudent play for Mark Richt, taking those 2 backs out. You know, you go through an entire SEC schedule as a running back, and you're going to feel it. Even if you don't play Alabama and LSU, you're still going to feel it. And you want to save as many snaps as you possibly can for the most important game of the year next week.
And we'll see how much Murray plays in the 4th quarter, if at all. He fumbled the exchange. Able to dive on it, though.
Murray recovers the fumble.
Murray has had a nice day. 14 of 17 passing, 2 touchdowns, 215 yards through the air. Since the 3-interception game against Florida, which, by the way, Georgia won, Murray now has 13 touchdown passes and no picks. Really has stepped up his play. But as you said, Brian, everybody including Mark Richt and the coaching staff, they want to see him play big in a big game, and he will get a shot next week.
When the lights shine the brightest, you've got to rise to the occasion if you want to be a national title contender. And next week, there'll be a lot of pressure on Aaron Murray.
Mark Richt had to call timeout there. I think he thought the play clock and the game clock were synchronized so that he would not have to run another play here in the quarter. But then he was told by the linesman that no, he actually was going to have to run a play. They weren't set. And that, well, now they're saying no. They worked it out and you don't have to call a timeout. So that is the end of the third quarter. Does it matter? It's 42-3. Aerial coverage being provided by the MetLife Blimp. See how MetLife can provide the coverage you need. MetLife, I can do this. Dave Pasch, Brian Griese, Jim Brown on hand for Georgia and Georgia Tech. And next week, Georgia will play in the SEC Championship live from Atlanta. Game day will be there. Game day built by the Home Depot, 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPNU, 10 a.m. on ESPN. A spot in the BCS National Championship will be at stake. The winner will get one of those spots. Georgia.
I think that's a tough ticket.
I shouldn't say the winner will get one, because what if Alabama loses today to Auburn and then A&M gets in? If A&M somehow beats Georgia, I don't think they're going to play for the national championship.
Right.
I mean, they might. But we're talking if Alabama beats Auburn,
right,
as Malcolm has tackled, which one would assume would take place, then Alabama will play Georgia. Georgia's in the SEC title game at the Georgia Dome next week.
I saw where there were 42,000 ticket requests from Georgia season ticket holders to go to that game. They only have 12,000 to dole out, so there's going to be some unhappy Georgia fans that don't get a seat to probably the most important game for Georgia in 30 years since their last national title in 1980.
They played the SEC title game last year, and they played in other ones and won them, but obviously, didn't have a national title at stake. You're right. Fair caught by Golden to the 25-yard line.
I'm sure you could find out on Twitter whether I was.
There's the pitch to Godhigh, and he gets wrapped up by Jarvis Jones. Let's check in with Jen.
Thanks, Dave. A nice little moment over here on the Georgia sideline. Defensive coordinator Todd Grantham just went up and down his bench at the end of the third quarter, imploring his guys. He said, look, get out there, play, hustle hard, because we are 15 minutes away from being one game away from playing for the national championship. Good news as well, John Jenkins got that right ankle taped up. He told me he is good to go.
And if I'm Mark Richt, I go over to Todd Grantham and say, get him out of the game. Don't get him hurt.
Well, you're not going to see John Jenkins anymore. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, look who else is out there. Here's Days with a big run. Rambo finally gets to him midfield, but all the other starters are still out there for Georgia. But to Jen's point, this Georgia defense under Todd Grantham has thrived, gotten better each year, and just the way they attack the ball. They forced 30 fumbles on the season, recovered 15.
Well, and remember, early in the year, they weren't playing as well. And everybody says, are they soft or this or that? Well, they didn't have some of their best players in Ogletree and Rambo coming out of suspension. So, certainly, Jones was hurt for a couple of games in the middle of the year. I think the best news for Georgia is that their defense is peaking at the right time.
Lee was going to throw. Instead, he breaks tackles trying to get away from pressure. That's a great play by Lee, and he got hit late. Out of bounds by Ogletree. They'll tack on 15 yards here to the end of the run. Great play by Vad Lee. Should have been sacked and got 10 yards and 15 more.
After the play, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, number 9 of the defense. 15 yards to the succeeding spot, first down.
You can see Ogletree just comes in a little late push, and that's a penalty. This is what they like about Vad Lee, his escapability, and Paul Johnson's looking for that unique skill set at the quarterback position that has athletic ability, that can run the option, make decisions, and that was not a good decision from Ogletree.
That puts the ball at the 22-yard line of Georgia. There's the pitch to Bostic. It was behind him, and he's wrapped up by Christian Robinson and thrown for a 7-yard loss back at the 29-yard line.
Ball handling handling is tantamount in this offense. Whether you're pitching it, faking it, and that ball way behind. Nice job by Bostic just getting a hand on it. That looks good in 3D, doesn't it?
You know, we sometimes use that term, they're getting slapped around. Well, he got slapped around literally. Watch at the end of the play. Robinson slapped him to the ground. Lee rolling out. We had it there. It was in slow-mo. We couldn't get to it. We needed to bring you the play.
You need the fast slow-mo.
Nice catch along the sideline by Jeff Green. Inside the 20-yard line. All right, here it is, just so I can prove my point, validate what I said. Look at this. Boom.
That was a love tap.
And then he pointed him, and that should have been a penalty flag. Taunting.
This is the inside linebacker group that was much maligned in the middle of the year. Sean Williams called those guys out. Christian Robinson, Michael Gilliard, Herrera.
There's Bostic on the pitch. Oh, look at Ogletree. My goodness. Wow. How about the speed of Ogletree?
And number 36, Sean Williams with the tackle.
This is what the scouts love. Here he is. He's just going to fly to the football. Once he reads the pitch, you can't outrun Ogletree. He's a converted safety, so there's no question about his speed. He put on the size once he got to the University of Georgia, and now he will be a first-round draft pick. There's only a matter. The only question is when.
Georgia Tech going for it on 4th and 5. And Paul Johnson calls a timeout.
Georgia Tech.
First timeout, Georgia Tech. 30-second timeout.
Unofficially, Alec Ogletree, 15 tackles, 2 for a loss for Georgia.
Verbal jabs going back and forth, but I'm looking forward to watching Jadeveon Clowney and whether he can get anything going against Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins and crew.
On 4th down, Lee setting up a screen pass. Lasky got the first down and more, and is in. Touchdown. There is a penalty flag down though.
Holding, 57 of the offense. 10 yards to previous spot, 4th down.
Perfect play call from Paul Johnson, just poorly executed up front by the offensive line. They got the center Alford again trying to block Gathers right in the middle of your screen, number 57. That's just that's tough duty when you get a single block on a man that outweighs you by 70 pounds and you're the backup center. You haven't played a whole lot this year. It's difficult. Georgia Tech is really missing the play of their starting center, Jay Finch.
Now you're a non-passing team with a 4th down and 15. Lee, incomplete. Georgia will take over on downs. Georgia Tech has had the ball several times deep in Georgia territory. Paul Johnson not happy there with the decision from Vad Lee. Turned it over on downs 3 times. They had a fumble, interception, a missed field goal at the end of the half. And Georgia in command, 42-3.
ESPN College Football is presented by Cars.com, where confidence comes standard, and in part by Marmot High Performance Outdoor Clothing and Equipment. Marmot for life.
Now Rambo in 3D has made some big plays for that defense. That forced fumble on the 1-yard line was huge. And the Georgia defense dominant in this game against a Georgia Tech team that scored 68 points in a game a few weeks ago. Parker Welch in the game at quarterback. His first pass is incomplete.
Welch's pass is incomplete.
Welch, a sophomore, is getting some work in this game today, replacing Aaron Murray, and then Hudson Mason, and guy they're trying to redshirt. They also have a freshman in Christian LeMay. There's Mason, number 14.
Yeah, Georgia coaches are really excited about Mason and his skill set, ability to throw the football, can make all the throws, they say. And if something were to happen terribly bad to Aaron Murray, we would see Hudson Mason.
And Malcolm tackled for a loss. Welch is from Jessup, Georgia, thrown 7 passes and has a touchdown. Penalty flag on the play. There's our schedule coming up next on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2.
Illegal formation. 5 men in the backfield against the offense. Penalties decline. 3rd down.
Yeah, that game on ABC at 3:30, Florida State. A lot of people talking about the Gators jumping back into the national championship picture, especially with Notre Dame having to play USC tonight. But the Gators have to play at Florida State.
Yeah, it's just they haven't been playing very well. You know, games against Louisiana Lafayette, it's Missouri, they haven't looked good.
Welch to the 30. Let's check in with Reese Davis.
All right, Dave, it is time. SportsCenter right now presented by Discover Card. Virginia Tech has been in 19 straight bowls. Got to beat Virginia to make it 20. Logan Thomas scores for the Hokies. They are tied. That game is in the 4th quarter on ESPNU.
All right, Reese, and it'll be 16 straight years in a bowl game for Georgia Tech, 4th longest in the FBS. Even if they were to lose next week, they'd be 6-7, but they would get a waiver and be able to compete in a bowl game. Actually, they finished 6-8.
Could very well happen.
Barber punting. Jamal Golden is deep for the Yellow Jackets. It'll be Tech ball at the 29-yard line, down 42-3.
Fair catch is made at the 29. That's where Tech will start following the timeout for television.
Showdown Saturday continues on ABC at 3:30. You look at the 2 defenses for Florida and Florida State. Question is, who's got the better offense?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of those exciting touchdown dances from Deion Sanders and whatnot in this game. This is going to be about defense.
But you would admit that Florida State has a better offense, right?
Absolutely.
Even with Driscoll back at quarterback. Out of the backfield, Godhigh with a catch and running room. He's into Georgia territory. And all the way inside the 30-yard line.
All the backups now in for Georgia. And I think Mark Richt would consider it a successful day to get out of here, even if they give up a couple late touchdowns without anybody injured in his starting units. But yeah, I would agree. Even with Jeff Driscoll, who has a high ankle, which is not easy to come back from, that offense was very limited. And it's my concern with Florida is that they seem to have regressed in the last month of the season, while Florida State has gotten better.
Oh boy, Bostic was wide open and Lee missed him. Incomplete. Well, the other thing that's interesting about Florida State is they're 10th in the BCS standings. They're a 1-loss team. They lost to NC State, but they're 17th in the computers. And obviously the computers impact your standing because it makes up 1/3 of the BCS standings. So, you know, if the computers looked at Florida State a little bit differently, maybe they'd be in the conversation for the national championship.
When you just look at it from an eye test, they should be in the discussion. I agree with Jimbo Fisher with respect to the computers, and their conference is holding them back. Now, they're big fans of Clemson tonight. They're hoping that Clemson can beat South Carolina so that their strength of schedule improves and that they beat, you know, number 4 ranked Florida. But I don't know that they have enough to overcome the slight that they're getting right now in the computer rankings.
I think Virginia Tech and them having a down year has really hurt.
Absolutely.
Really hurt Florida State. Because it wasn't like their loss happened 2 weeks ago. It was over a month ago that they had that stumble in their schedule. Lee with the late pitch and Godhigh slammed down at the 30-yard line by Robinson.
Christian Robinson.
I've been impressed with the way Georgia, I know they have size on defense, but I've been impressed with the way that they can run to the edge. With Robinson, Ogletree, we knew about. Herrera, I mean, from the inside linebacker position, this team can run. And then in support from the secondary with Rambo and Williams, I've been impressed with the way that they prepared for this option attack and the way they've executed and really held them to 3 points all day.
4th and 11. And Vadley Being chased, takes off. What a job by Lee to get the first down. Now, he had no shot. He dropped back, and there were 4 Georgia players right there. But Lee got out of trouble, and it's 1st and goal.
And he's the kind of player that Paul Johnson really wants to build the future around at Georgia Tech. He certainly doesn't have all the answers right now. He's not able to check the offense at the line of scrimmage quite like a senior would be able to, but he has all the intangibles, and on top of all that, he's a great kid, which is really nice to see.
So 1st and goal. That was a 20-yard gain on 4th and 11. And that's going to be an easy touchdown as David Sims, the B-back, for the Georgia defense. So the first touchdown surrendered by the Bulldogs. 4th rushing touchdown for David Sims on the season.
Big difference when you put the backups in and they get blocked on the outside. And you know, these second-team guys for Georgia don't get a lot of reps in practice. It's all the first-team guys that are taking reps, and so you put them in there, and all of a sudden you run the option at them, and very difficult to stop.
Extra point is good. 42-10 Georgia, with 7:25 remaining in the 4th. Well, Georgia is trying to win a national championship this year. They won it with Herschel Walker in 1980 as a true freshman. He ended up in '82 winning the Heisman Trophy. Almost 5,300 career rushing yards. Now here's Gershel, Gurley, and Marshall today. Coming in through 11 games, they had virtually the same numbers as Herschel Walker did as a true freshman. Both Gurley and Marshall are true freshmen.
That's a tough comparison to make, man. They have had an unbelievable true freshman year, but you look at Herschel Walker, that just those 2 clips, him running over a safety and then running by another guy, unbelievable.
That's our UPS efficiency update. And it's not that we have nicknamed, if you're
it's
not
a good
an SEC fan, it's a nickname that the players have given these guys, Gershel, in part because of the, obviously it fits with the names, but also the numbers. One guy worth 3, the other guy 4. Richard Samuel, the deep man here for Georgia, and decent return out near the 27-yard line. If Alabama wins, it will meet Georgia next week in the SEC title game. If it loses, then LSU could get back into things depending on what A&M does against Missouri. Christian LeMay is in the game now at quarterback. And he gets about a yard on the carry. LeMay is a redshirt freshman who's thrown 2 passes this year.
Yeah, LeMay was very highly recruited coming out of North Carolina, as you see. 6'2", he can stand to put a little bit more weight on, but Georgia coaches are very excited about the prospects of Christian LeMay. He got a strong arm.
Richard Samuel is in the game at running back, a senior. Final opportunity for a lot of student athletes to play in front of the home crowd. Senior day here at Sanford Stadium. Samuel wrapped up by Anthony Harrell for a loss on the play. Also, the Governor's Cup is at stake. Yes, a BCS National Championship still on the line for Georgia, but as Mark Richt told us yesterday, this is a big game, means a lot.
Absolutely.
In the state.
Each one of the seniors get their name on that trophy. It's a big deal.
And Georgia has dominated the series the last decade, winning. It's going to be their 4th straight win, 11 of the last 12. 107th meeting. I know the ACC championship game has only been around for, what, 8-9 years, but it's the first time that these teams have met with both schools being outright division champs. Samuel, the ball carrier there. That's 4th down, and Georgia will punt. Assuming Alabama wins, that is a matchup that I think, because of what A&M did, I know their offense is different than Georgia's, but because of what they were able to do against Alabama's defense, with a guy like Aaron Murray and these freshman tailbacks for Georgia, going to be fun to watch in Atlanta next week. Game day will be there for the SEC championship game. And a short kick by Barber. And Golden falls on it at the 38. Let's check in with Reese.
Dave, a great game going on ABC. Michigan and Ohio State Buckeyes trying to remain undefeated. 23-21. Devin Gardner hit and fumbles. It is Michigan's third turnover of the day, but again, the Wolverine defense holds Ohio State to a field goal. 26-21, 6 and change to go on ABC.
Last year, Devin Gardner, Brian, led them down the field to victory against Ohio State. Denard Robinson did last year. Can Devin Gardner do this year?
That looks like it's going to come down to the last seconds. How many times that game has come down to the final play?
Lee throwing it up for grabs out of bounds, incomplete.
You know, you were talking about Alabama versus Georgia, and I think that the matchup is really going to come down to this Georgia offensive line. You see the production from Alabama defensively, you know, first in scoring, second in total defense, and Georgia has had, you know, all kinds of success on offense. Now, they haven't had this kind of success that's on this graphic against South Carolina and Florida. And to me, the difference is the offensive line for Georgia. Can they withstand the pressure that will be applied by Alabama's front seven and Nick Saban's scheme?
Zennon trying to cut up field and does near the first down.
Because to me, Nick Saban is going to take away what you do best. And what Georgia does best is they have a quarterback that can orchestrate the offense in the running game, getting into ideal looks, in protections, managing that, and then getting the right play call each and every down. I just don't know that Aaron Murray can outsmart Nick Saban. So if I were Mike Bobo, I would take that out of the equation, call it a little bit more conservatively, and give yourself a chance to compete.
They get the first down here with Lasky. Well, Texas A&M has a guy like Manziel who's a dual threat. You don't have that with Murray. You've got a passing quarterback.
You got to protect him, and that's the biggest question, right? I mean, Manziel, you don't. They didn't rush Johnny Manziel because you can't get to him. Aaron Murray, you can get to him, and the question for Aaron is going to be, do you know how you're protected? And when the protection breaks down, do you know where to get rid of the football, and can you protect the football? Because if you turn it over, you know, the SEC championship game, you know, you're not going to win that.
Completed for about a 4-yard gain. The only reason they won the Florida game is because Florida turned it over more. But Murray threw 3 picks. Georgia was not good offensively in that game, but Florida had what 6 giveaways in that game, including one on the goal line as they were going in maybe to pull within 2 and then tie it on a 2-point conversion.
But the good news is that Georgia has the talent to play with Alabama. You know, unlike a lot of teams in the country, they have the talent on both sides of the ball. They just have to play their best game.
Is the Georgia defense better than the LSU defense? Because LSU's defense did a good job against McCarron and that offense.
Right. Yeah.
Are they better?
I don't know that they're better. I think they're playing better than they were earlier in the year. And can they continue to get better and better? I mean, the play of the linebackers, to me, has been a big difference. You've also got 2 very veteran safeties that I think can come up and make plays, not just tackling guys, but getting turnovers. So they certainly have the potential to stop Alabama.
Days on the pitch, gets the first down for Georgia Tech. An injured Georgia player, Mike Thornton, backup nose guard, shaken up on the play. We apologize if you're hearing that. That's the coach's box next to us.
Number 96, Mike Thornton, is the injured Georgia player.
Last thing you want to see at the end of this game is guys get hurt. And it's obviously hasn't been the kind of game that Georgia Tech wants to go out with, but you don't want to see guys down on the ground injured at the end of games like this.
.246 left, and Georgia will improve to 11-1, be their 6th straight win after the loss to South Carolina back on October 6th. In search of their first SEC championship since 2005. It'll be the 5th title game for Mark Richt. 2-2, 1-0-2, 1-0-5. You know, think about it. They had a slump here. 2010, they were 6-7, but the last 2 years, in the regular season in the SEC, they are 14-2. And I know you could point some to Aaron Murray and that 2010 season he was a freshman, but also what Todd Grantham's done with this defense as Leon gets the first down there in 4th and 1.
Absolutely. The defense has been key. And I was talking with Todd Grantham down on the field before the game, and I know he's has a sigh of relief right now after this game kind of ticks down to the end. The last 2 weeks he's been studying triple option football. He's just like, I need to get through these 2 weeks and then we can focus on Alabama next week. But it's been a long year for this defense, but a defense that again has gotten better and better as they've gotten guys healthy and gotten guys back. And they're starting to play their best football at the most important time.
The challenge for the coaches and the broadcasters as well. This was your first look. You watch more tape this week than you have all year.
Trying to learn this offense. It was interesting though. I mean, the principles of this offense were sound, and they just went up against a defense in Georgia that had more talent and more speed.
I'm giving the gold star there to our spotter, J.D. Rutledge. As he scampers and out of bounds. There is a penalty flag down. It's hard to follow the players, all the pitches and fakes.
Offense. 10 yards to the previous spot. 2nd down.
It's not hard for J.D. Rutledge, though. I know that.
Well, for Georgia Tech, they're going to have to bounce back against a team that might be as good as Georgia. Florida State in the Dr. Pepper ACC Championship game in Charlotte next week. And again, the great equalizer is the offense. And who knows, they might have still gotten blown out. But if they scored on that first drive where they fumbled on the 1, if they had scored, maybe it's a different game.
What game
you're smiling.
What game have you been watching for the last 2.5
totally
hours?
shifted after that. It was 14-0. And
I tell you, Jarvis Jones, Jenkins, Ogletree, they were still going to play the rest of the game.
I know. I'm just saying it might have been different. It might have been 42-24. Closer game. Badly running around, getting away from defenders, and now gets drilled as he throws the ball incomplete. That's Christian Robinson again, inflicting pain on the Yellow Jacket players. It's 3rd and 17.
Yeah, you got to be careful in this situation. If you're Vadley running around, these guys are going to continue to come after you.
How about the fact, too, Paul Johnson, Brian, that he doesn't use a call sheet. It's all upstairs. It's all in his head.
Well, he's been running this offense for a long time, and he's old school. You don't see that from many coaches, if any. Even the old ball coach has got a little play sheet, But Paul Johnson, he's got it up there memorized.
Speaking of the old ball coach, that's tonight on ESPN. South Carolina Clemson. We got delay of game here.
Delay of game against the offense. 5-yard penalty. Still 3rd down.
So 3rd down and 22. You see the checklist there. And that's what's next. Win the SEC championship. And if they do, if they beat probably Alabama next week in the SEC championship game, as that pass is incomplete out of bounds to Waller, then Georgia will be in the national championship game. Don't forget tonight on ABC, Notre Dame looks to grab a spot in the BCS title game, playing USC. It'll get really chaotic if the Irish lose. That makes every game so important today. Florida State up next on ABC. That's got BCS championship implications, obviously pending the outcome of the Notre Dame game. Lee going to throw deep. Single coverage down the sideline and the pass thrown out of bounds. And Georgia will take over on downs. Well, the SEC has won the last 6 BCS championships, starting with Urban Meyer in 2006 and the Florida Gators. They won it again in 2008. Then Alabama, 2 of the last 3 years. Sandwiched in between those 2 titles, Cam Newton and Auburn. Head coach might be done after this season. Not him. The guy at Auburn. That guy's going to get in the Hall of Fame, especially if he wins 3rd in 4 years. They got Auburn up next, and then if they win, they'll play Georgia.
And Oregon is not. I mean, despite the fact that they lost so late in the year, They're still in it too. I mean, and they don't have an easy game at all. Oregon State has the speed to run with Oregon, and they may have learned something from the game last week against Stanford.
They take a knee. They'll have to do it one more time unless Tech calls timeouts. But give Georgia a lot of credit. You know, there's a history of some letdowns, but they did not at all. Right from the beginning of the game, you could see the intensity level. And our conversations with Coach Rick yesterday said he wasn't worried about it.
Yeah.
Said he had a great group of leaders, and that they felt because they didn't have the 20-hour rule in effect, because there were no classes, he could really hunker down with his team and just focus on this game. And that's how it played out. They were certainly focused on this. They played aggressively, a lot of energy, and they get their 11th win.
No, and this is a sign of a mature team to be able to focus on the task at hand, take care of business, do it in an impressive fashion. And now all this hay is in the barn. They can now focus 110% on Alabama next week.
Alabama's got Auburn next, but assuming they win, they'll face Georgia. One down, one to go. If Georgia wins the SEC championship in Atlanta next week, they will play for a national championship. And again, game day will be on hand in Atlanta next week, leading up to the SEC championship game. 42-10 the final score. And let's check in with Jen Brown.
Thanks, Dave. Coach, defense was so dominant. Robinson, Ogletree had some big plays. Jarvis Jones able to make an impact against this offense, which you didn't necessarily expect. What did you think of what they were able to do today?
I thought it was a great performance by our defense. You know, we took our #1 unit out, and they got 7 on the board at the end. But our defense did a super job. Our coaches had a great plan, and you know, playing against it for 2 weeks probably helped us a little bit too. But I just thought they gave great effort. I was really proud of them.
2 great efforts by also your freshman running back. They didn't spend a lot of time on the field, but they both got 2 scores. What did you think about what Marshall and Gurley was able to do?
Well, I thought the offense in general did extremely well. I thought we blocked well. We did about whatever we wanted to do, throwing it, running it. It was just one of those days where everything was going well.
Right after this, Alabama and Auburn face off to determine who's going to play you next week in the SEC championship game. Who are you pulling for?
I'm not even worried about it right now. I'm just thankful that we won, and we'll show up in Atlanta and play wherever shows up.
All right, great job, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
42-10 the final. Georgia's 1 win away from a spot in the BCS National Championship game. College football scoreboard presented by Honda coming up next. So long from Athens. Now to Reese Davis in the studio.